Good afternoon. Thanks for coming today. I just wanted to take an opportunity here as we end both the year and get to the end of 1 year. Well, we're past 1 year at this point of this administration. To just share some updates on some ongoing projects and some initiatives that are at work here in the city of Frederick. For me, one of the areas of greatest interest is the opportunity in January for the community to actively participate in the 2030 strategic planning process. This plan that will be drafted over the coming 3 to 6 months is an effort to capture the city's 10-year vision, set priorities for city actions to achieve that vision, and assign actions to specific city departments. We have 5 community engagement events that are scheduled in January at different times and locations throughout the city. These are public brainstorming sessions that we are inviting everyone to participate in, dot exercises, group discussions, moderated opportunities for the public to participate in this process. I'm asking you to accept this as a personal invitation to participate in the strategic planning process and to help craft the city's future. You can find an event that is most convenient to you, either by date or by location, by visiting the strategic plan section of the city's website, which is cityoffrederick.com/strategic plan, or of course you can call the mayor's office. With the new year, we wanted to reinforce again the revitalization of a bulk collection program in the city of Frederick that will be free to our residents. So this is a new approach to the way in which we've done this in the past. So we're not quite sure how this will roll out, but we're very optimistic that our residents will find this to be a convenient way for them to get rid of those large bulk items that they've been holding on to for quite some time. It will be free curbside pickup once a year for residents who are eligible. So the old program, we set a date and people would put their stuff out on that date, and it was sort of a free-for-all for the community, which I know the public really participated, but it created all sorts of challenges. This program will require our residents to take some of the responsibility by picking up the phone and scheduling a date that is convenient for them based on their normal trash collection date, and the city will provide pickup services to their curbside. And so there will be, we hope, opportunities here to meet both the public demand, what we've heard over the years of a desire to bring back a program like this, but also to have our residents really be thoughtful about efforts to recycle and reuse things that are in their possession. Again, you can find out additional information about this on the city's website, some of the logistical details, by visiting cityoffrederick.com/bulk. I wanted to provide just a little bit of an update on some of the infrastructure projects that are at work in the city of Frederick. We, of course, had the groundbreaking just this past fall for the Christopher's Crossing segment across the Sanner Farm, the section from Possumtown Pike to Poole Jones Road, with an estimated completion date of June 2020. This new road will open up a major access loop for the northeast part of the city, stretching from US Route 15 all the way to Walter March Road. A completion date for the center section of Monocacy Boulevard from Gashouse Pike to Church Street is getting closer. We are still on target and expecting that to occur this spring. So that's good news. The project has stayed so far on the timeline that we had set. I certainly do appreciate the community's patience as we get through these projects. They're never easy to go through these infrastructure projects, but in the end, I think we all find that they are worth the wait. And this newly designed roadway and bridge will make it easier for folks to get from the north side of the city to the east side of the city and vice versa, not just for automobiles, but for pedestrians and bicyclists as well. Speaking of bicyclists, anyone who's traveled on the north part of Market Street has noticed the new green bicycle lane through that area. So that's a new effort on the part of the city to provide even more standout bicycle infrastructure so that we as a community can become more accustomed to seeing the infrastructure for bicyclists and motorists side by side. For us to truly become the kind of community that we want to be to support pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles in equal measure, we need to make sure that the infrastructure we're putting on the ground and this dedicated marked bicycle lane is one of those efforts. So we hope folks are enjoying that. We have also widened a section of the shared use path through Baker Park over the past year, and we have secured grant funding to begin an effort to increase some of the bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure along the west side of the city of Frederick. So that's an exciting opportunity for us as well. As the harsh weather has set in, we're certainly mindful of those in our community who lack for some of the basic resources. And some of these things will be repetitive for those who follow the things that are happening in the city. But for some of you, I hope this is new information that you're not aware of. So if you have not heard, we have made a commitment to fill a gap in services by having our Community Action Agency provide a day shelter for our residents in downtown Frederick or anywhere in the city who need a place to go in the day where they don't have a more permanent structure. The purpose is to prevent environment-related health problems such as hypothermia and frostbite. In addition, the Frederick Community Action Agency staff is available then to evaluate the needs and link the individuals that use these programs to other healthcare, disability benefits, and other kinds of services that we're able to provide in the city of Frederick. This temporary day shelter is at the Community Action Agency's activities room at 100 South Market Street. It, of course, complements the array of programs and services that are available currently through the Community Action Agency, whether that's food, shelter, medical assistance, transportation, permanent supportive housing programs, other forms of assistance. The Community Action Agency is a joint effort of substantially the city and the Friends for Neighborhood Progress. I will say that we have made a request to the county for support of additional county funding to support that operation for fiscal year 2020, and we look forward to that. We, of course, just recently, within the last couple of weeks, helped to celebrate a milestone. Stephen Gordon, a longtime resident and active member of our community, was one of the founding individuals connected to the Community Action Agency and Friends for Neighborhood Progress way back in 1968, 50 years ago. So we celebrated Stephen Gordon Day in the city on December the 5th. On the weather front, we are certainly ready for the winter weather, which we hope will not arrive. We have made the transition, we hope, from readying for the kinds of things that you get in summertime, like rain, to the kinds of things you get in wintertime, which are generally more icy, though this past weekend was not really playing along with that weather shift. I did get a report from Public Works today that while we saw some of the kinds of localized flooding that we will sometimes see when we have these heavier rain events, that we didn't have any other negative impacts as a result of the heavy rains that fell for a couple of days over the weekend. Since the flooding earlier this year, we have begun a serious evaluation of our stormwater system to determine where and at what cost we can make improvements necessary that will protect the life, safety, health of our property. And we are expecting some preliminary findings from the Army Corps of Engineers in the spring. So once we know what that evaluation looks like, we'll be able to look at what the mitigation and the future investment the city will need to make in that as well. Additional environmental regulations that went into effect on October 31st of this year, looking at us to maintain good housekeeping and stormwater management permits, provided an opportunity for us to expand our year-round yard waste collection to a weekly effort in the city of Frederick to capture leaves and other materials that might otherwise have been placed in the street. So I certainly recognize, and we've gotten a lot of input, pro and con, from residents of the city. We know that this was a substantial change in the habits of our residents, but the word that we were getting was that the previous practice of allowing our residents to rake leaves into the street was simply not good for the stormwater system, and it wasn't good for the environment, and it wasn't good for our permit. And so all of those things together provided an opportunity for us to look, is there another way for us to provide this service? And we went to the weekly yard waste collection, and I can only use what I observe with my own eyes and hear from our staff. We think the word has gotten out. It certainly didn't get out to everyone, and we've tried to provide some gentle reminders to residents that there has been a change in that yard waste program. But we hope when the spring and summer rolls around and that weekly collection is available for things like grass clippings and those sorts of things, that our residents will take advantage of that. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't remind you that with the right kind of mulching apparatus on your mowers and whatnot, most of those organic materials, when it comes to grass and leaves, don't actually need to be removed. Done the right way, you can backyard compost and keep those materials on your lawns. One more note about some environmental things that we're dealing with. Of course, we completed the wastewater treatment plant upgrade in 2018, and so that is something that we're now seeing fully operational and meeting all of the Maryland Department of the Environment standards for what we place into the Monocacy River as a discharge location for us. Our goal with all of these projects, we recognize they cost money, we recognize there may be inconvenience associated with those, and it's easy for us to sort of reject them as mandates that come from the state and federal government, but I think what we have to remember is we are trying to be mindful of climate change, the effects of climate change, and what our long-term impacts are on the environment which we can influence. And these are things that we can do that materially affect the environment as we influence it, and I think we are committed as an administration to finding the way to do that in the most cost-effective, responsible way that we possibly can. On the fun side, in 2019, we're very excited to begin offering Parks and Recreation programming at the new Butterfly Ridge Elementary School as a result of the completion of that construction project with the oversized or Parks and Rec-sized gymnasium. We'll begin to be able to provide services out there to residents on the west side of the city of Frederick, and we're certainly excited about that. You can visit the city's website to find all sorts of information about the various Parks and Recreation programs that are available to our residents. In keeping with one of my commitments to improve the city's diversity and inclusivity of our workforce and the procurement process, and it's certainly a commitment, I think, of the Board of Aldermen as well, and I want to acknowledge the presence of Alderman Kelly Russell and Alderman Derek Shackelford here today. Thank you for being here. We certainly are working as hard as we can on those sorts of efforts, and just this past week, we had 40 members of the senior staff of the city of Frederick participate in diversity and inclusion training. We are invested with the leadership of Human Resources to carry on a process where this training and opportunity will eventually filter down through focus groups throughout the organization of the city of Frederick, that we're getting all employees involved in this conversation. We know that the first step to creating a diverse and inclusive workforce is making sure that the diverse and inclusive community that we have at our disposal believes that we are that kind of a workforce. And so we have to start that process in-house, which is what we're doing through this program. And I appreciate the Board of Aldermen's support for us being able to get that program underway. Additionally, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Review Panel, which I appointed last spring, is getting ready to present some initial findings to us. They are assessing the purchasing and procurement processes of the city of Frederick and have been very busy since last spring. We are anticipating an update on their efforts at the first workshop of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen in 2019 on January the 2nd. The economic outlook, we think, for the city of Frederick moving into 2019 is good. And two quick things that I wanted to mention, again, this is not news to anyone who's been paying attention, is the presence of the Golden Mile Enterprise Zone, which is an opportunity for us to hopefully attract additional investment, private investment, into what's happening on the west side, because there are tax credits and other kinds of opportunities available for businesses that make those investments. And just this past week, we had an Opportunity Zone information session here at City Hall, which was an opportunity for the development communities and others interested in the Opportunity Zone program to understand a little bit more about the structure of that program with someone from the state who's well connected. This broadly, without getting into the details, is a federal program that was established to create some tax incentives for those who have capital gains at their disposal to make investments in areas designated as opportunity zones. And in the city of Frederick, those opportunity zones are substantially located on the west and the east sides of the city. I'm excited about another first that's occurring, which is the appointment of a youth advisory committee. Tonight they will be having a meet and greet, which is an opportunity for the newly appointed members of this youth advisory committee to get together and meet one another and begin the process of talking about what they want to accomplish over the coming year that some of them will have. For others, it will be a couple of years their appointment will last. The first official meeting then will come sometime after that, and we have a couple of ideas in mind for them to be able to sink their teeth into. One is items that were discussed a little bit at the Board of Aldermen's budget priorities meeting that was held last week, which is to look at summer internship opportunities, summer youth work opportunities, and we believe there's a natural fit to have this Youth Advisory Council be one of the entities that we consult with in terms of how these programs can be structured to really work on behalf of creating this relationship between the students and the young adults in our community and to really get them active and engaged. I said this at another function recently. The easiest way to get people interested and invested in what happens in local government is to get them interested and invested when they're young. Usually when we get people interested and invested when they get older, it's because they have some kind of axe to grind or some sort of issue that they're trying to resolve in government. The benefit of bringing them in when they're young is perhaps we can create a good pathway to solutions before problems emerge. And I'm very excited about the opportunity that we're going to be able to provide for the young people that we've appointed to this Youth Council. Certainly some of the future priorities which you heard about at the Budget Priorities work session, we're looking very carefully at the infrastructure along Carroll Creek in terms of cameras and other kinds of improvements that we can make in the public sphere to improve the experience of our residents and our visitors in downtown Frederick. We are committed in 2019 to taking a look at the Neighborhood Advisory Council program. After 15 years, it's due for an upgrade, and so we're talking about that as NAC 2.0 or Build a Better NAC. And I just want to reiterate our commitment to sustainability and let everyone know that effective January 1st of 2020, we have signed an agreement to acquire 100% of our electricity in the city of Frederick from 100% renewable sources. So our sustainability plan had set a goal that we would get 20% of our electricity from renewable sources by 2023. We're going to do 100% in 2020. So my hope is that that's something, it's always somewhat dependent upon markets and pricing, but we've made the commitment to start that, and to get to that level, that is something that we're certainly going to work hard to continue now that we've got that underway. So I suppose in conclusion, and I'm happy to take any questions from anyone, is that I'll end where I began, which is, again, just a plug for the strategic planning process. When we began 2018, we did so with a Strategic Opportunities Advisory Team that would help us begin a process of launching a long-term vision of the city of Frederick, and that's exactly what has happened. Those reports came back from those groups, and that lays the foundation for the strategic plan process that we will draft in 2019. The opportunity for the public to be engaged in that process is critical, and it starts with those outreach events that are coming up next month, the first of those on January 7th, and then at other dates to follow. To make this a meaningful vision, we want everyone to be involved, and we will, through the course of this process with surveys and some other mechanisms, provide an opportunity for the public to really weigh in on this process. So I made civic engagement a cornerstone of my campaign, and I'm trying to continue to do that through this administration. We've done that in terms of the monthly Q&As that we've set up around the city with our residents, and I want to just take this opportunity to say thank you to the Board of Aldermen for their engagement in the processes that we've put in place here as the 62nd administration, certainly to our directors and our employees who do the hard work and have the commitment every day to the well-being of our residents and our businesses and our visitors. I'm so appreciative of the public because I think through the monthly Q&As, these meetings, these kinds of opportunities, we can see that the interest of the public to be engaged is there, and I think that's why we're here. It's why we're here to serve. And so I would just conclude by saying I wish everyone a happy and safe holiday season, and certainly a joyful and prosperous 2019. And so with that, if there are any questions, I'm happy to talk about anything else that anyone wants to talk about. Jeanette, we're going to get you a microphone. We're recording this so that, and streaming it, and who knows.
Hi, I haven't been to meetings recently. I've had some issues moving from one place to another. I'm now in a senior facility, rent apartment building. What are you doing for seniors in 2019? Are you adding any services? The trip hazards, of course, are something that I've been trying to get promoted and done. Seniors can't go downtown. I'm sorry. I tell them, please don't go downtown. It's too hazardous. when you have a trip hazard and you've got a senior, you've got two things going on. So I'm wondering what services you're going to have in 2019 for seniors.
So I appreciate the question. So one of the things that we did in 2018, the Board of Aldermen passed a senior property tax credit. So that is an opportunity for individuals that meet certain age and income eligibility guidelines to get part of their property taxes. So that's I'm not going to say that that's a significant move the needle for most seniors, but I think you start these efforts by looking at the things that are possible. And so the senior property tax credit is one of those areas where we've made that investment. I think the issue which you've raised on a number of occasions is part of our ongoing capital improvements program, and the challenge really is how we continue to make the necessary investments in that capital improvements program to look at both sidewalk retrofit projects, sidewalk improvements projects, all those things that occur in those transportation corridors as we make that commitment to bicyclists and pedestrians and all those sorts of endeavors. The commitment is there on the part of the city. I think the challenge that we have is we have to make sure that we're continually investing and updating the hierarchy and the priorities of those projects so that we're meeting the needs as best as we possibly can.
Exercise programs for senior. In Hagerstown, their program at their senior center, all of their classes are free. Here you have to pay for them. And there just now in January is going to be a grant program to help pay for those classes. But if you keep seniors balanced and exercised, you keep them out of nursing homes, you keep them out of facilities, you keep them in their homes. This is not happening in Frederick City or Frederick County.
I appreciate that very much, and I'm sure that as we get to the budget process and looking at things that we are able to do, as I said, Alderwoman Gazemchek is in the back of the room. I'm sorry I missed you earlier. I'm sure they're listening and taking notes, as am I. Dave, let's get to the microphone. I know you think your voice is loud enough, but we're going to get to the microphone anyway.
Excellent job, and I want to remind everybody that the Red Sox did win this year.
Yes, but the Patriots didn't do anything to help the Ravens yesterday. Can I just say that?
Can't be 100%. Really good job, and our thanks to Alderman and to you. I know it's the big bucks that you all get. So, I had a friend come up the other day from out of town, which is interesting that I would have a friend, but I had a friend come up, and we walked up on Market Street, and we got up to the pawn shop, and then we began to walk a little further, and we began to see empty buildings and more empty buildings. You and I have had this conversation before, but perhaps there are some people here that have not. What's happening?
So I'm not ready to, or prepared today to announce a specific initiative relative to that, but I can tell you I've been having those conversations with staff, and we are doing the research on the opportunities that are available to us to look at vacant properties in a way that's different than what we've done before. We have a list of legislative priorities, things that have been identified by the Board of Aldermen that are important. I certainly have my own list of projects and priorities, and what we're trying to do is to mesh these things together. But I can tell you that this is an area that I'm very interested in, and we're looking. I hesitate to make a commitment about a time frame on it other than to say my hope would be that sometime in 2019 we'll bring forward to the Board of Aldermen for discussion some kind of a concept to deal with vacant properties in a more targeted way than we've done up until this point. Any other questions? Yes, sir. We're going to bring you the microphone.
Thank you, Mr.
Mike.
Mayor.
Appreciate it.
Season's greetings.
Likewise.
I appreciate your sincerity.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you, though, what has happened to the organization called East Frederick Rising?
East Frederick Rising still exists.
That's why I'm asking you, Mayor.
They are, to my knowledge, meeting on a regular basis. In fact, one of my staff members was just at an East Frederick Rising meeting within the last 2 weeks. Last week?
How are they doing, staff member?
I won't put him on the spot other than to say I know that they're very interested in the a potential public art project on the east side in terms of the circle at East Street.
Okay.
They're watching carefully the North Market Street, North East Street corridor planning effort. They're paying attention to the new development that's coming from Wren Quarter and the other opportunities on the east side. So
the activity there would be part of the consideration as this strategic long-term plan that's being put together.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
The reason I asked, Mayor, I was interested in that group because part of my background is in planning. So I was a part of that organization, and I thought, what a waste of time those meetings were. This was like 3 years ago. I don't know what the group's been doing lately, but they weren't that active at that time. We'll see.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Sure. Anyone else? Well, again, I really appreciate you coming out and hearing what we have to say today, and thank you, and Happy New Year.